Well, apparently, the huge spike in violence in London, the stabbings and shootings, the murder of an 87-year-old Thomas O'Halloran, or Halloran, who was stabbed to death on his mobility scooter, and the number of people who have been arrested on suspicion of murder or attempted murder is, according to London Mayor Sadiq Khan, all down to the lovely weather that we've been having. You know, because there's nothing quite like a bit of sunshine to turn people into fucking psychos. Happens to me all the time. That's right. Sadiq Khan, in his attempt to deflect the issues from himself, has declared that the longer daylight hours, school holidays and a heatwave are the reason for the spike in violent crimes.
Because I'm afraid this summer we are seeing what we feared, which is an increase in violent crime as there are longer daylight hours, school holidays, heatwave and so forth.
Being very careful not to say that so far most of it, if not all, involve non-white British men. Now, this video isn't about bashing minorities, it's about speaking about a problem that no one else seems to want to talk about. For example, we all know that Brixton is a highly multicultural area of London. Caribbean roots run deep in the area. The last census in 2011 showed that 50% of the population were white British, with 50% other ethnicities. And according to the Office of National Statistics, across London as a whole, the white British population was 43.4%. So although in some areas it will be more white or more ethnic, across London as a city, white British are the minority. Well, in Brixton, 4 men were stabbed on Saturday night on Josephine Avenue at around 6:20. Police and paramedics were called to reports of a large street fight. One man was seriously injured and his condition is said to be critical, and another man who had also been stabbed was found, who was subsequently arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. No names have been released yet. A vehicle was then seen leaving the area and, upon being stopped by police, discovered another 3 men. 2 had suffered knife wounds and 1 man was tasered during the stop. Police say that a further 3 men were arrested at the scene under suspicion of attempted murder. Earlier in the week, 87-year-old Thomas O'Halloran was stabbed to death in his mobility scooter in Greenford by 44-year-old Lee Byer, who was subsequently arrested and charged with murder. Greenford, according to demographics data, has 50% white British population, and again the remaining 50% made up of other ethnicities. At the beginning of the week, last week, a triple shooting happened in Brent. The borough of Brent is said, according to the Brent Council website, to be one of the most diverse areas of London, where almost 2/3 of the population are from black, Asian and minority ethnic groups. The 3rd highest in London. Just 16% of residents in Brent are white British. The shooting injured a 17-year-old boy, a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old. 2 of them were very seriously injured. In Ealing, 58-year-old Aziz Benis was stabbed in her home on Monday afternoon. Her daughter, Hannah Benis, was charged with murder. On the same day, August the 14th, 36-year-old Sonny Booty was found dead at a home in Lewisham, and 60-year-old Stephen Goodman was murdered in Dagenham. 2 people have been charged with their deaths. Again, no names that I know of have been released at this time. On Saturday, August the 13th, a 25-year-old man was shot in Walthamstow. Now, that's a lot of violence, and granted, we don't have the information of all the suspects or the victims. These all happen in areas of high ethnic demographics or by people, as we've heard from the names, of some kind of ethnic background so far. You know, but of course it's the weather.
Because I'm afraid this summer we are seeing what we feared, which is an increase in violent crime as there are longer daylight hours, school holidays, heatwave and so forth.
Now, let's take Bradford as a comparison to London, another highly diverse area of the community, so much so that locals call it Bradistan. Now, we don't really need to see the demographics of Bradford for this comparison because, again, we all know that it is a highly multicultural area. Hundreds of videos online on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter show that the majority of violent crime is coming from the group of the population that would be generally described as the minority groups. We rarely, if at all, see videos of gangs of white British men going around waving machetes, running people over and using their vehicles as deadly weapons, ganging up on single individuals and beating the shit out of them. And although I'm certainly not suggesting that all minority groups in these areas are responsible, the videos don't lie, and the majority of violent crime is committed by these groups as far as I'm concerned. And I've said it before, that personally I think it's because of people coming over to the UK from places where carrying weapons or using weapons is commonplace. And once they come to the UK, they carry on as if they were back wherever they came from. Bearing in mind that I know a lot of Eastern Europeans carry weapons too, but we still see less incidents of gangs of Eastern Europeans running rampant through the streets attacking people with 2-foot machetes. Granted, it happens, but from what I've seen, not as often. Now, this kind of behaviour has been going on for years in Bradford, and there has been no mention of an increase due to the hot weather spell we've seen. So why would Sadiq Khan try to deflect the issue and blame the weather? I mean, it's an insult to blame the weather when the people to blame are the government, the police, and, for London, Sadiq himself.
Because I'm afraid this summer we are seeing what we feared, which is an increase in violent crime as there are longer daylight hours, school holidays, heat wave and so forth.
So he's basically said that they feared it was going to happen. They knew it was going to happen, but had no plan in place to try and prevent these acts of violence by, I don't know, say, for example, putting more police on the streets. Now, of course, that wouldn't eliminate the violence, but with a copper within running distance, wouldn't go amiss in a fight against crime. I know that we are all capable of violence. Every ethnicity, every religion, every sex, gender, whatever, is capable of stabbing and murdering people and committing other crimes for that matter. But take Bromley, for example. Apparently it's the least diverse area in London. It's said to be in the top 10 safest boroughs in London. Again, I'm not suggesting that there's a correlation between the lack of diversity and lack of crime, because crime still occurs in Bromley and every other area of London for that fact, but it's certainly something to think about considering they have less crime. Again, this video is not about bashing ethnic minority groups. I have people from ethnic backgrounds who subscribe and follow me on here, and I've never had a problem with any of them, just as I've never had a problem or negative interaction in my life with anyone from any minority group. Maybe that's because I tend to pick who I befriend carefully and stay away from people who like to get involved in gangs or drugs. That includes white people, by the way, before you jump on me. But I do find that many of the violent crimes are now committed by people from these backgrounds. I'm not saying that I think it's always their fault, as they come here after so many years living their lives in a certain way. But once they come here, they fail to realise that it's not acceptable here. I also know that a lot of deprived areas are areas with majority ethnic backgrounds, which obviously can lead people into crime. But for me, it's not the people who were born here necessarily who will turn to this kind of behaviour. It seems to be the people who have come over here as adults. And as there is definitely a correlation between those who come here as adults from other countries and the rise in violent crime. Now, I know some of you will disagree with me, and some of you will agree with me. This isn't about me trying to force a point of view on you. It's about telling you the facts of what Sadiq Khan said and the facts of the crimes that have been committed. And it's about opening debate, talking about these issues. And hopefully you won't get yourself brass balls because you're sitting behind your computer thinking you can come and attack me or others in the comments. I have tried to keep this report respectful, and if you think that I've failed to do that, then I can only apologise. My point overall is that Sadiq Khan has blamed the rise of violence on the weather rather than other factors such as I have pointed out here, whereas nobody else seems to have an increase in violent crimes due to the sun having its fucking hat on. So to me, it's simply Khan trying to deflect. But based on this, it doesn't seem to me any wonder why police might stop young black men in certain areas more than they stop young white men. Again, I am not condoning any bad behaviour from police during these stops, as they should still be respectful and treat everyone with dignity. And although we do hear lots of bad behaviour from the police, I don't think personally it's a surprise that in certain areas certain types of people are stopped more frequently. We will see as time goes on who the perpetrators and victims were of these violent attacks that I've mentioned in this video, and we will get a better idea of who has been responsible. But this is not, and I repeat, this is not to suggest in any way that all ethnic minority groups are dangerous people, because they're fucking not. Just like us honkies, there are people who are prone to this kind of behaviour and people who are not. So I'm not targeting any group in particular, which is why I've left the individual minority groups out of this. I haven't said black or Asian or anything else. I've just said minority groups, so that I'm not accused of targeting anyone. I will ask you all to please be respectful in your comments, as certain comments could damage the channel. And please, if you disagree with somebody in their comments, attack their argument, their opinion, not the person themselves. The person has an opinion based on what they know, based on what they've learned, based on what they've researched, okay, or what they've seen. All right, so they've formed an opinion because of that. The same as you've formed an opinion based on what you know, what you've seen, what you've learned. We all see things slightly different, so we're all going to have different opinions, okay? It's the opinions that we should disagree with, not, and not hate on the people with those opinions, because it's not their fault that they've come to that opinion based on their understanding of what they've seen. So please, let's try and keep the comments respectful. Thank you.